The radio crackled with static and desperation across the Afghan valley floor. 3rd Platoon had been pinned down for 43 minutes in a dried riverbed, Taliban fighters controlling the high ground on 3 sides. Captain Morrison's voice came through broken and raw, the kind of transmission that makes operations centers go silent. He didn't ask for close air support. He asked for mercy, asked for evacuation of remains, asked for someone to tell his wife he tried. The Tactical Operations Center at Bagram went cold. Every screen showed the same thermal signature: 37 friendly forces, no movement, surrounded by over 200 enemy combatants moving in. The Quick Reaction Force was 18 minutes out. Medevac was 25. Apache gunships were refueling after a 6-hour mission in Helmand. The duty officer reached for the red phone to tell Central Command they were about to lose an entire platoon when a voice cut through the channel, calm as morning coffee, with a Tennessee drawl that seemed to carry dust and wildflowers. Bagram Actual, this is Hatchet 2-1, 5 minutes north with a full combat load and eyes on your problem children. The operations center stirred. Someone pulled up the tracker. A single A-10 Thunderbolt, the plane everyone called the Warthog, was diverting from a show-of-force mission along the Pakistan border. Captain Morrison's radio operator responded with coordinates and the grim arithmetic of their situation. The voice that answered made half the room exchange glances. It belonged to Captain Ryland Dust Kine, and the betting started immediately in corners of the TOC. She'd been flying the A-10 for 8 years, had 217 combat missions logged, and carried a reputation that made conventional fighter pilots uncomfortable. Not because she was reckless, because she was annoyingly, persistently, mathematically precise. 2-1 copies all. Friendlies are in the riverbed, hostiles on Ridgelands Echo, Foxtrot, and Golf. How copy? Good copy 2-1. Be advised we're taking effective fire from all 3 positions. They've got us zeroed. Then I suggest you get comfortable with the sound of thunder. The A-10 appeared from the north like something out of myth, flying low enough that Morrison's men could see the painted teeth on the nose, the scorched carbon around the gun barrel, the sun catching on titanium armor that had stopped more bullets than anyone bothered counting. Dust Kine banked hard, letting the enemy see her silhouette against the white sky. She wanted them looking up, wanted them angry, wanted every barrel pointed at her instead of the men bleeding out in the sand below. The Warthog wasn't built for elegance. It was built for this. Her first pass came in screaming. The GAU-8 Avenger cannon spun up with that distinctive roar, a sound like the earth tearing open, 65 rounds per second of 30mm depleted uranium hate chewing through Ridgeland Echo. The gun created its own weather, smoke and dust and shockwave. Taliban positions evaporated. She pulled up hard, banking west, already lining up Foxtrot. Morrison's radio operator was shouting coordinates, but Dust had already memorized the battlefield from a single glance. She didn't need updates. She needed fuel and ammunition and time, and she'd brought enough of 2. Ridgeline Foxtrot took the next pass. She came in from the southeast, wings level, giving them 3 seconds to realize what was happening before the cannon spoke again. Tracers reached up toward her, green fireflies against blue nothing. Something struck her left wing, punched through aluminum like paper. Her aircraft shuddered. Warning lights bloomed across the instrument panel. She ignored them with the discipline of someone who'd trained for this exact moment in a simulator 2,000 times. The manual said disengage with critical damage. The manual had never bled in a riverbed with no one coming. Hatchet 2-1 is taking fire, continuing attack. Her voice still carried that eerie calm like she was describing weather. The operations center watched her altitude drop, her airspeed decrease into dangerous territory. The A-10 could fly slow, could loiter, could take punishment no other aircraft would survive, but it couldn't fly without wings. Another burst struck her fuselage, stitched holes across the tail. She kept the trigger down. Ridgeline Foxtrot went quiet in a cascade of secondary explosions, ammunition cooking off, fuel stores igniting. Men who'd been shooting down now running for cover that didn't exist. Morrison's voice came back stronger now. 2-1, you're hit, we see smoke. Hydraulic fluid, Captain, she'll hold. She didn't mention the flight control degradation, the stick going mushy in her hands, the backup systems already compensating for damage the engineers would later call catastrophic. Dust banked toward Ridgeline Gulf, the last position, where the heaviest concentration of fighters had dug in. Her ammunition counter showed 68 rounds remaining, not enough for a standard pass, enough if she didn't miss. The enemy knew she was coming. They'd watched her destroy their flanks. They had RPGs now, shoulder-fired missiles, everything pointed at the sky. Dusk came in from the west with the sun behind her, buying herself 2 seconds of blind confusion. She used them both. The cannon roared one final time, short, precise burst, and Ridgeline Gulf came apart in fire and geology. She pulled up through her own smoke, felt something in the airframe shift wrong, felt the whole aircraft list left like a ship taking water. All enemy positions neutralized. You're clear for movement, Captain. Morrison didn't respond immediately. His radio operator did, voice cracking. 2-1, you just saved our lives. That's the job. Now get your people out of that hole. She didn't wait for acknowledgement. Her A-10 was dying in the air, losing altitude despite full throttle, the left engine temperature climbing into red. She pointed the nose toward Bagram, 68 miles of hostile territory, and started doing the math. Rate of descent, fuel consumption, backup system endurance. The numbers didn't work. They never worked. That's why she kept flying anyway. The operations center watched her track the slow descent, the wavering course corrections. Someone suggested she bail out, take the parachute, let the Air Force buy a new Warthog. Dust didn't respond. You don't abandon your wingman, even if your wingman is 10 tons of titanium and battle damage. 30 miles from Bagram, the left engine seized completely, turbine blades destroying themselves in a shower of sparks visible from the ground. She shut it down, feathered the prop, kept flying on the right engine alone. 20 miles out, the hydraulics failed completely. The stick went dead in her hands. She switched to manual reversion, cables and pulleys, flying the way pilots did in 1943. Her arms burned. Sweat ran into her eyes. The A-10 wanted to roll left, wanted to die, and she held it level through pure physical strength and the kind of stubbornness that gets people written up in safety reports. Bagram Tower, hatchet 2-1. 15 miles out, single engine, manual reversion, landing gear status unknown. The tower cleared every runway, scrambled emergency response, rolled the fire trucks. They could see her now through binoculars, the Warthog coming in like a wounded bird, trailing smoke, one wing shredded, till looking like someone had used it for target practice. Dust lined up on runway 27, no flaps, no speed brakes, just momentum and geometry. The landing gear deployed with a mechanical thunk that rattled through the cockpit. 2 green lights, 1 red. The nose gear hadn't locked. She came in hot, touched down on the mains, held the nose up as long as physics allowed. When it dropped, the unlocked gear collapsed immediately. The nose hit concrete with a shower of sparks and screaming metal. The Warthog skidded 3,000 feet, throwing parts and smoke and titanium, before sliding to a stop 20 yards from the fire trucks. Dust shut down the remaining engine, pulled the ejection seat pins, and popped the canopy. She climbed out slowly, inspecting the damage with the clinical interest of someone checking their car after a minor fender bender. The left wing looked like Swiss cheese. The fuselage had more holes than metal. The tail was barely attached. A major from maintenance was the first to reach her, face pale. "Captain, how the hell did you fly that back?" Dust pulled off her helmet, ran fingers through sweat-soaked hair. Carefully. Morrison's platoon made it to the extraction point 18 minutes later, all 37 men alive. They learned about Dust 3 days later when she walked into the chow hall and someone recognized the call sign. The betting had already started, whether she'd been lucky, whether the damage reports were exaggerated, whether any pilot could have done the same. Morrison walked directly to her table, set down his tray, and offered his hand. She shook it without comment. You didn't have to do that, he said. Do what? Keep flying after they hit you. Dust cut into something that approximated meatloaf. A-10's built to take it. I meant you. She looked at him then, eyes the color of dusty glass, and Morrison saw something that made him understand why she flew the plane nobody wanted. Why she stayed in fights after everyone else called retreat. She wasn't fearless. Fear just didn't get a vote. Your radio operator asked for help, she said simply. I had gas and guns. Seemed worth trying. Morrison nodded slowly. The men want to buy you a drink, all of them, simultaneously. Tell them to donate it to the Air Force Ball. I don't drink in country. He sat anyway, and word spread through the chow hall like electricity. Other pilots wandered over, maintenance crews, the tower controller who'd watched her land. Someone asked about the manual reversion landing. Someone else asked about the ammunition count. Dust answered in that same unhurried drawl, turning horror into geometry, fear into procedure. She'd done the job. The jet had performed. The men were alive. Everything else was just paperwork. What she didn't mention was the calculation she'd made at 43 minutes into the fight. The moment she'd realized her aircraft couldn't survive another pass, but her survival didn't matter compared to 37 men in a riverbed. She'd chosen then, quietly, without drama, the same choice she'd made in 100 other cockpits. The mission mattered. The men mattered. Everything else was negotiable. The maintenance major found her after dinner, carrying a clipboard thick with damage reports. Captain Kine, I need your statement for the accident investigation. Wasn't an accident, Dust said. Aircraft performed as designed under combat conditions. Ma'am, with respect, you landed a plane that should have killed you. Then the design worked. He studied her for a long moment. This woman who'd brought back something that shouldn't fly, who'd saved lives at the cost of an airframe the Pentagon would spend $8 million replacing. They're going to want to know why you didn't eject. Dust met his eyes. Tell them I didn't feel like walking home. The investigation took 3 weeks. They documented every bullet hole, every system failure, every impossible decision. They interviewed Morrison's platoon, the tower controller, the operations center staff. Everyone told the same story with different details. A single A-10, a pilot who wouldn't quit, a plane that shouldn't have flown but did anyway because someone needed it to. The official finding was meritorious action under fire. The unofficial finding, the one passed through ready rooms and maintenance hangars from Bagram to Kandahar to Incirlik, was simpler. Dust doesn't leave until everyone's home. She went back to flying 2 weeks after the crash. New Warthog, same call sign, same methodology, low and slow and precise. Other pilots started requesting her as backup, not because she was flashy, because when she said she had your back, she meant it with the kind of permanence usually reserved for physics. Morrison's platoon rotated home 3 months later. Before they left, they commissioned a patch, an A-10 with shredded wings, the words "Not today" underneath. They gave it to Dust in a ceremony that wasn't really a ceremony. Just 37 men who wanted to say thank you to someone who didn't need thanks. She kept it in her locker, next to her grandfather's pilot wings from Vietnam and a photograph of her first solo flight. Reminders of why she'd chosen this life. Why she kept choosing it, mission after mission, even when the numbers didn't work and the survival odds made actuaries nervous. Someone had to fly the plane everyone else thought was obsolete. Someone had to show up when the radios went desperate. Might as well be her.